Here's what's coming up on Inside City Hall tonight.
The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing.
In a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court struck down President Trump's global tariffs, deeming them illegal. We'll bring you the details. And I'll talk exclusively with Governor Kathy Hochul, who attended a meeting with the president and other governors in Washington, D.C. earlier today. Meanwhile, in the city, the Mamdani administration announced an 84-unit affordable apartment building in the Bronx will be the first to go through the city's new Expedited project approval process. And later this evening, we'll dig deeper into Mayor Mamdani's budget and how expanding eligibility for the city's half-price fare program, known as Fair Fares, did not make the cut. For the best news, debate, and analysis, join us inside City Hall. Good evening and welcome to Inside City Hall for Friday, February 20th, 2026. I'm Ayanna Harry. Governor Kathy Hochul traveled to Washington, D.C. this week for the National Governors Association, an annual event that brings together governors and leaders from across the country. But a meeting with the governors and President Donald Trump came to an abrupt ending after the news that the Supreme Court has ruled Trump's global tariffs are illegal. In a 6-3 decision, the court said the president exceeded his authority when he imposed the tariffs without the approval of Congress under an emergency powers law. Until now, the court's conservative majority had given the president, but today 3 of the court's conservative justices sided with the liberal justices in striking down the tariffs. Trump is now pushing back, saying he will sign an executive order to impose a global 10% tariff. Joining me now for an exclusive interview from our Washington, D.C. studio is Governor Kathy Hochul. Governor, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. Great to see you again.
Governor, did you have an opportunity to speak with or meet with the president one-on-one during your time in Washington? And if so, what can you share about the conversation?
No, I would say I was at the meeting with the governors this morning, and there were a number of issues that pertain to New York that was being discussed. One is when he was asked the question, what is the lesson you learned from what happened in Minneapolis? He said, we're only going to go places where we're welcome, where they want to have us there. And he said, for example, New York, I'll only go there if Kathy wants the city. So that was actually pretty reassuring and rather unexpected in that environment. But he says he's worked with me before, we'll keep working together, and he knows I'll stand up when I disagree, like I have on this unconscionable surge in ICE arrests around the country for people who are not committing crimes but who are here lawfully. So if that's the situation that holds, I will not be making a call to the president to bring the National Guard and ICE to our cities. And so I thought that was a very interesting outcome from the meeting.
Any conditions that might change here in New York that would prompt you to make that call to the president for a greater ICE presence here?
No, I don't see it at all. We'll continue working with ICE as we have for decades when it comes to, people who've committed crimes in their home country, committing crimes here. My job is to keep New Yorkers safe. But what is happening from an agency that's literally out of control, arresting teenagers and people who've been here for years trying to make a better life for themselves, it is unconscionable. Not to mention what happened in Minneapolis with the murder of 2 U.S. citizens. But we're seeing raids in schools and in places of worship and in child care centers, and I'm going to have a ban on all of that. So what we have here is already more than enough. I think it's unnecessary. It's over the top. These are not well-trained individuals, and we need to rethink the whole issue of ICE's role here, and they need to be reformed dramatically. But you will not hear from me ever saying to President Trump, I want you to come in greater numbers, I want a surge, and I want the National Guard. That is not happening.
I want to talk a bit about the National Governors Association meeting, which was usually a bipartisan event at the White House. Seemed to take a different tone when the president moved to not invite 2 Democratic governors. Just talk to me a bit about this back and forth and how you think it changed the tone of the meeting this year.
It was ridiculous to go back and forth and say it's a meeting of national governors. It's been happening for, I mean, Teddy Roosevelt started this organization when he was president to bring Democrat and Republican governors together and give advice to the president. So two governors, Wes Moore from Maryland and Jared Polis from Colorado, were told they're not welcome at this meeting. So we were all saying, well, we're not going either then. It's not good. We're going to stand with our other Democratic governors. But they relented and they ended up inviting them. And so I did go today, and both those governors were present. So, but unnecessary drama, just more of the chaos out of Washington. This is a bipartisan organization dedicating to try and foster cooperative agreements and understanding. So it just doesn't stop.
We've seen you clash with the president over funding for the Gateway Tunnel project. Funding was restored earlier this week. Construction is back underway. Is this fight over, or are you worried that there could be a future threat from Washington?
You know, I called the president, the third call I made. I talked to him Monday night, and I said, Mr. President, I'm going to the Gateway Tunnel construction site, where there are now 1,000 individuals unemployed, union members, and what would you like me to tell them, Mr. President, that you just killed their jobs? So he said he would look at it. Within 2 days, the money was all restored, and I'm so proud that they're back to work. But we don't need this on and off again dynamic. It's going to slow down the project. It'll make it more expensive. And I cannot say for sure that they won't play games again. But right now, it's a very good outcome from that call, is the fact that these people are back to work and the project is moving forward.
What is it about your relationship with the president that you're able to pick up the phone and get him to move on the Gateway Tunnel project, that, he's referencing you when speaking about, ICE agents and where he's going to, perhaps send or not send more agents?
I decided early on I would make the effort to have a relationship that is productive for the people I represent when I agree with the president, or I have to get him to back off of something that was harmful for our state, so I want to keep the communication open. But he has even said to me before, he goes, you beat the hell out of me sometimes on television, and he's not happy about it. But I'm not afraid to stand up, especially with, cutting off millions and billions of dollars in essential money we need for people's health care, or to cut $3.8 billion in child care and essential services for people. I call all the time. I fight on that. Sometimes we win, sometimes we don't. But what I have told them with ICE, and I said this to members of his administration this morning, I said, you have to get ICE under control, and they need to leave our cities. Leave a presence to go after the criminals if you have to. Spend time on the border to help us, the northern border in Canada here, New York State. Help us get drug traffickers and gun runners and people trafficking in drugs. Help us with that. But please leave innocent people who are law-abiding residents alone. And that's where we have constant conflict. And so my point is, I will pick my fights and stand up to him when I think New York's rights or our values or our people are being challenged by him.
Governor, I want to turn to Mayor Mamdani's budget proposal address earlier this week. He has persistently called for you to increase taxes, the state legislature to increase taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers, on corporations. Despite you saying that this is a non-starter for you, is this beginning to put a strain on your relationship with the mayor at all?
No, I don't think so. We're not going to agree on everything, or even many things sometimes, but that's okay. What I promised the people of this state was that I would work on a productive relationship with the mayor of New York City, something that we have not seen in a very long time in this state. And look what we did. The mayor was on the job for 8 days, and I helped him fulfill something that was important to him, but something I've been wanting for many years. Our interests aligned, and we now are on a path for universal child care with substantial funding from the state of New York. Those are the kind of wins I want him to have, because it's also good for New York City overall. I also represent 8.5 million New Yorkers. So we don't have to agree on how what the funding sources are. And I understand. The people are frustrated. They feel that the system is rigged and they're not getting ahead. And affordability just makes them crazy when they're trying to pay the bills. How are they going to afford all this? So I will continue focusing with the mayor on what we can do together. We've supported him with $1.5 billion this week alone to help him with his budget. And the rest he'll have to work out with the city council and the speaker and those elected members who are responsible for all those decisions. But we will continue to be allies to the city because I need New York City to be successful, and I will not do anything to harm the city. As I said, those are also my constituents.
So if the mayor came to you with a new plan to tax the wealthy, saying that funding is needed for a specific initiative, do you think then you might reconsider your stance?
No, I'm very firm in this because, you know, I understand the frustration out there, but what I want to do is broaden the pool. If we can bring in more money from having more jobs created or more businesses coming here by having an environment where they know what the taxes are, and again, people are paying quite a bit in taxes. I understand that. But I want to make sure that people are still here and we don't end up having those taxes pushed down to lower levels of income to make up for lost. So this is the challenge we face. It's not an easy one. And I know there's a lot of passion with this idea, but there is a path forward. I mean, we've been through more complicated issues in the past. I know that we can roll up our sleeves and make sure that New Yorkers get what they need, what services they need. Public safety being the most important element that a mayor and a governor can work on is driving down crime and making sure people feel that they can go in our subways and not worry about crimes. I'm committed. I've put more money in our budget to help with that alone. So I think we're going to be fine.
Governor, I finally want to ask you about the weather. We are expecting more snow here in New York coming up later this weekend into the start of next week. What state resources are being mobilized ahead of the potential next storm?
We are always ahead of the next storm. As soon as we get the sign, we start bringing in additional utility crews in case the power lines go down. We bring in the snow plows, the trucks, all the emergency vehicles that I need to position around the state so they're ready. What gets complicated is when we have statewide events, when every corner of the state is affected. And I cannot tell you how many of those events we've had this winter alone. It's been a devastating winter. But New York City residents should be prepared to curtail their activities. The snow is supposed to start 6 a.m. on Sunday and go through 6 p.m. on Monday. And again, we've been fortunate in the past. Some of these storms have been on the weekend. This one's going to hit Sunday, but also through Monday, a work day. And so plan accordingly. Try to stay indoors and make sure you check in on your neighbors. But we've been through a lot this winter. We've got through it so far, and I'll be heading back up here to work on the managing the command center and the operations in Albany as early as tomorrow. I'm going to head back earlier than I expected.
All right, Governor Kathy Hochul, thank you for joining us from Washington.
Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.
And it is now time for a break. Coming up, some of New York's congressional delegation is reacting to the Supreme Court's ruling on Trump's tariffs. We'll have more on that after the break. Stay with us.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
When you're connected with Spectrum, you get 5G and fiber-powered internet combined for the fastest wireless speeds. So you can sweat for the right reasons. It's only the seamless connection you love at home, everywhere you go. It's only everything.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You've done at the sports section. Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall, where we're keeping the focus on the Supreme Court's tariff ruling. Queens Congressman Gregory Meeks has been on the front lines of the fight against the president's sweeping tariffs on America's trading partners. Our Washington, D.C. reporter Shannon Ryan sat down with him earlier today. She joins me now from outside the Supreme Court with the details. Hi, Shannon.
Hey there, Ayanna. As you could imagine, the congressman certainly views this as a victory. But with the president already announcing new tariffs, he tells me he feels this fight is far from over. As the top Democrat on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Queens Congressman Gregory Meeks is ecstatic about Friday's Supreme Court ruling striking down President Donald Trump's sweeping emergency tariffs.
You must feel vindicated by this decision.
Well, absolutely.
Last week, Meeks successfully passed a resolution out of the House, labeling the tariffs that Trump levied on Canada under a law giving presidents broad economic powers in times of emergency illegal. Friday, the Supreme Court ruled that law, known as IEPA, does not give the president power to impose tariffs on any country.
The court agreed with what Democrats have said from day one. A president cannot ignore Congress and unilaterally slap these tariffs on the American people.
The decision did not cause President Trump, who's centered his foreign and economic policy around tariffs, to retreat. Instead, he announced new tariffs using a different legal mechanism.
Today, I will sign an order to impose a 10% global tariff under Section 122.
But that provision of trade law will limit the size and duration of new tariffs, something Meeks views as a win.
He's been doing it in an arbitrary and capricious way, quite frankly. And this will prevent him from doing just that.
After Friday's ruling, the president also lashed out at the top House Democrat, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries of Brooklyn. Jeffries had called on the president to refrain from any further unilateral action on tariffs.
Call him a low IQ.
But why wouldn't
he? Doesn't even know. And I watched him the other day interview. The guy doesn't even know what a tariff is.
Certainly some strong words there, Ayanna. Now, Congressman Meeks tells me that he's taking a look at these new tariffs the president has announced and also re-examining existing tariffs that remain intact. They were levied under different mechanisms than IEPA. And he says he may be filing new legislation to oppose them.
And Shannon, what response have you seen from Republicans?
Well, last week we already saw some GOP lawmakers break with the president when they supported Meeks' resolution, rebuking those Canadian IEPA tariffs. And today, with the Supreme Court ruling, 3 of the justices who broke with the president, they're conservative. That certainly drew ire from the president. Hudson Valley Congressman, he's a Republican, Mike Lawler, he gave us this statement about that specific scenario. He said he feels that it reaffirms our system of checks and balances is alive and well, adding that he supports the president's push for what he calls fair and reciprocal trade agreements. Ayanna.
All right, thank you, Shannon. And it is now time for a break. Coming up, the Mamdani administration says an affordable apartment building in the Bronx will be the first development to go through the city's new expedited land use procedure. We'll explain next. Stay with us.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of going to the theater. Onstage celebrates that excitement every week by taking you behind the scenes with the latest news and in-depth interviews of the hottest shows on and off Broadway. So grab a seat, because this is a show you won't want to miss. Join us every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m. for Onstage.
Onstage is presented by your Tri-State Cadillac dealers. Discover which Cadillac is right for you and elevate your journey.
It's only a hike. It's only made possible by Spectrum Business connecting healthcare providers of all sizes. Like hospitals relying on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network with industry-leading reliability. Practices keeping patient data safe with advanced security. Pharmacies accessing records in the cloud without fail. It's tailored connectivity solutions built for life-changing moments. It's only a hike. It's only everything. Spectrum Business.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York One to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood, because our city never stops moving. Hi, I'm Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories. But first, stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
And welcome back to Inside City Hall. More than 80 affordable apartments are planned for Mott Haven in the Bronx. It's the first project to undergo the city's new faster review process. It'll help the Mamdani administration achieve its affordable housing goals. Our Dan Rivoli joins me now with more. Dan, good evening.
And good evening, Ayanna. So under the old system, this could take as long as 7 months to get this project approved. But under the new public review process, it could be as little as 3 months. And for the Mamdani administration, this is a key tool to build more affordable housing. But if you live in the neighborhood and oppose such a project, you'd have less time to organize opposition to it.
We're here to mark the next step in turning this empty lot into 84 affordable homes.
The next step, city officials say, is a public review.
We will use every tool in our arsenal to build housing more quickly.
The $69 million project, called the Powerhouse Apartments, is the first development to be reviewed under the expedited process voters approved through a ballot referendum last year. The Mott Haven Bronx development is eligible for $31 million in city money. It's being built on a parking lot for the school next door. It will have a community theater, workforce training center, and outdoor green space.
I have a problem with them building something like that in this neighborhood.
But concerning to homeowner Philbert Jeffrey, the 30 apartments for homeless New Yorkers and social services on site.
That's the shelter. The one behind that is the shelter. Going up the block, it's all shelters and drug treatment centers. I mean, we're getting more than our portion.
To Jeffrey, putting the project on a fast track is like giving residents here the short shrift.
Instead of fast tracking it, let's take time and hear what the neighbors have to say about it.
There's always a school or a park or something that is very dear to the community.
The new councilwoman here, Elsie Encarnacion, backs it.
Our job is to make sure that that support is steady and that it benefits everybody in this community by having it here.
Meanwhile, Jeffrey said his neighbors feel the same as he does.
It's going to change everything.
Ray Santiago said he plans to fight it.
We'll see what we can do. Get a little group together and go to wherever they hold in the meetings.
With less time to do it. Meanwhile, Mayor Mamdani wasn't at that event. He was at another event meeting with Amazon workers along with his Commissioner for Consumer Affairs and Worker Protection. On the left side of your screen, on the right side of your screen, City Councilwoman Sandy Nurse. All three were talking about new rules going into effect on Sunday that would expand the reasons workers can use to take paid time off, Ayanna.
And Dan, going back to your story about this expedited review process, it was interesting to hear from those residents and their concerns with the process. What more can you tell us about the details of how this new process is different from what we've seen in the past?
Well, critics and supporters of the old way of reviewing public projects would say Opposition, like you saw in that report, could tank a project, especially at the city council level, where the member would have a lot of influence on whether a project can go forward or get stopped in its tracks. Under this expedited process that voters approved by ballot referendum, basically for most projects, the city council doesn't really have any say anymore. It really stops at the city planning commission, although there are some exceptions. So a project like this, where they're going to build on a city-owned parking lot, the city council does have a review here. But like I said, in most cases for a lot of projects, you really don't have a lot of that power concentrated in a single council member to put a stop to a project they don't like.
Yeah, it sounds like this is a significant update. You know, previously taking 7 months. It sounds like it could take now as little as 4 months. Any indication that there's a pipeline of projects waiting to be approved that'll now be able to move through quicker, or are developers still struggling and looking for places to build in the city?
Well, as you see here, it's a city-owned lot, and that was put out for bids, and they got attention. Developers wanted to build on there. What's interesting, a lot of the housing officials here said that this fast-track process is not just for development. It could also be for solar projects, outdoor space, or other kind of climate resiliency projects.
All right, thank you. We appreciate your reporting, Dan. And one of Mayor Mamdani's campaign promises was to make buses free. But he didn't get the support for that in Albany so far this year. Advocates say he could have expanded the city's half-price fare program, Fair Fares, to make more New Yorkers eligible, but it is not in his budget. New York One Transit reporter Samantha Liebman has the details in this report.
Tiansel Conte must travel from East Flatbush to her job in Hudson Yards, sometimes by subway, sometimes by the pricier express bus. And the city's half-price transit fare program, Fair Fares, has helped her get by financially.
New York City is a really expensive place to live, and not having to worry about getting around has been really, really helpful, and I'm really grateful for programs like this.
She stopped by a table set up at the Hudson Yards station promoting the program. She wanted her friend Lauren Jones to sign up, but she makes just a little too much to qualify.
It's like a lot of things that I don't qualify because of like that in-between uncomfortable pay rate. It is hard because the people who are in that predicament, we have to pay for so much like solely on our own, like without getting any like discount or benefits.
Mayor Zohran Mamdani promised to make transit more affordable. He did not get free buses from Albany this year, and this week his preliminary budget did not expand Fair Fares eligibility.
We are particularly hopeful that that is just a matter of conversation and discourse over the coming months.
The program was expanded last year from 145% to 150% of the federal poverty level, or FPL. Current income guidelines are set at just over $23,000 for one person, about $49,000 for a household of four. Some want to expand it further to those living on up to 300% of the FPL. That bumps it up to almost $47,000 and just over $96,000 for a family of four.
It's really a minimal cost for the maximum benefit. So expanding Fair Fares to 300% of the federal poverty level, 1 million additional people who would rely on transit will cost between $125 and $155 million.
It would amount to 0.1% of the budget. City Council Speaker Julie Menon says she will push to expand the program.
First of all, we need to increase the outreach so that all New Yorkers who are eligible for Fair Fares know about that. And then we also want to see that expanded.
Mayor Mamdani, however, pointed back to the city's fiscal reality.
I continue to believe deeply in the importance of making public transit more affordable, and Fair Fares is a critical tool in that.
Samantha Liebman, New York One.
It is now time for a break. Coming up, I'll talk about Mayor Mamdani's busy week and much more, but I'm joined by the weekly Reporters Roundtable. Stay right here.
My time at New York One has shown me that in the city that never sleeps, the news never stops. So as the day winds down, turn to the rush hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Burke.
To catch up on the stories that matter across the 5 boroughs, with in-depth interviews from the city's newsmakers, plus the latest forecast. Catching you up with today, preparing you for tomorrow. Right here on the Rush Hour. Weekdays from 4 to 7 p.m.
It's only a slice. It's only made possible by Spectrum, connecting businesses of all sizes, like small businesses, instantly serving up orders and inventory on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network. And factories, seamlessly connecting to farmers in the field with tailored solutions that always deliver. It's only a slice, it's only everything. Get your business free fiber-powered internet forever. Call to find out how.
I'm Chris Jakovic. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakovic, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our New York City community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Faced with no other choice, the city would have to exercise the only revenue lever fully within our own control. We would have to raise property taxes.
Well, we've been very clear that is a non-starter for us. We cannot be raising property taxes.
I think folks should be angry about what was proposed. I always want to make sure people are angry at the right people. And I believe folks should be angry at Kathy Hochul.
So I don't put this at the governor's doorstep. She literally did put $1.5 billion down, and we should go back and work with her more.
I'm not supportive of property tax increase. I don't know that that's necessary.
We have to make sure that the city is on sound fiscal ground, and we're looking to Albany to help us do that.
We would like to accomplish savings with a scalpel, not with a blunt instrument.
So I continue to believe that this city's more than 2 million rent-stabilized tenants deserve a rent freeze.
They also are a, frankly, disgrace to our nation, those justices.
Donald Trump's speech is just like his tariffs. Erratic, disorganized, based on fiction.
We do not want to put forward a city government that cannot meet the needs of New Yorkers.
We've supported him with $1.5 billion this week alone to help him with his budget. And the rest he'll have to work out with the city council and the speaker and those elected members who are responsible for all those decisions.
And welcome back to Inside City Hall. That was a look at some of the week's top political stories. Joining me now to discuss them are 2 top journalists in our Friday Reporters Roundtable. Chris Sommerfeld is a City Hall reporter for Politico, and Rebecca Lewis is a senior state politics reporter for City and State New York. Thank you both for being here. All right, Chris, you were inside the room as the mayor rolled out his preliminary budget proposal. What stood out to you, and do you feel like you saw the mayor's political priorities reflected in this budget?
I mean, I think the main part that stood out was the proposal to raise property taxes. Now, the mayor kept stressing, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. It was almost like he was talking smack about his own budget proposal. But what stood out so much is that he's putting himself in this almost impossible situation where he's saying, I'm going to have to do this unless the governor raises taxes on the rich. And the governor has made clear over and over and over again that she's not going to do that. And at the same time, he doesn't give himself another off-ramp. He doesn't really say that there's enough savings to allocate in the budget to fill the gap with that alone. So he's stuck in between a rock and a hard place, and that was the main takeaway from that presentation, to be honest. 55-minute
presentation. What has some of the fallout been like this week? What have you been seeing, Rebecca?
I mean, I think we saw it at the top of the show.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone is talking taxes. No one can seem to agree. No one wants to see property taxes, as Chris said, including the mayor. It's been a very unusual kind of fallout because the mayor doesn't want to raise taxes on, like, property taxes. The governor doesn't want to raise property taxes. The city council doesn't want to raise property taxes, but they also don't want to raise taxes on the wealthy. So it's been a lot of, I would say, mostly negative, mostly maybe confusion of what's going to happen next. And especially after the governor gave $1.5 billion to the city, it's just not entirely clear what sort of leverage the mayor is expecting to have here.
Yeah, one of the questions that I had for the first deputy mayor when he was on the show earlier this week is there a plan C? And it doesn't seem like they have floated a plan C, even though there's already strong opposition to plan A and plan B. Have you heard something different, Chris?
The only thing that I can come to think of is what Council Speaker Julie Menon is saying. She seems somewhat convinced that there can be enough savings in the existing city bureaucracy, that we can close the $5.4 billion gap just by cutting down on cost where it needs to be done. That sounds like a big number to fill with just savings, to be clear. But at the same time, like Rebecca just said, no one wants to raise any of these taxes, so I don't know where we go. Maybe we're going to end up in a situation where the mayor might have to enact the sort of cuts that we saw under Eric Adams that he despised, and that would be political disaster for him.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of that, when you look through the budget book, one of the things we notice is that there is a reduction in funding for libraries, potentially put on the table. Rebecca, is Mamdani starting to sound a bit more and more like Eric Adams, or not necessarily?
I don't know if we're quite there yet, but it has been somewhat striking to see, I guess, the realities of the job starting to impact Mayor Mamdani. No one wants to cut library hours, and Mayor Adams got all kinds of flack when he proposed this, including, I think, probably from then Assemblymember Zohran Mamdani. But when you're facing a multi-billion-dollar budget gap, and no matter how much money you found in the couch cushions between what you were originally projecting and when you go to Albany asking for money, there's still a lot of space to fill up, and sometimes that's doing unpopular things. But it is striking to see him doing, or at least proposing, doing something that got the previous mayor so much criticism.
Yeah, we certainly covered it. Chris, I know you watched the relationship between the previous mayor, Eric Adams, and the previous council speaker, Adrienne Adams, deteriorate over time. Any indication as to what Mamdani pressuring Julie Menon for this property tax hike might mean for their relationship? Menon was on Mornings on One. She said they have a positive relationship. They speak together all the time. But he's putting this public pressure now on her and the city council. I don't know if you've heard, whether or not this might impact their relationship, or if they're going to find a way to, peacefully disagree?
I think it's too early to say. I hate to answer your question like that. It's too early to say if this is going to deteriorate. But I think we've seen some early signs of friction. When he proposed this property tax thing, Julie Menon was quick out with a statement saying this shouldn't even be on the table. That's a pretty harsh rebuke. And then the next day, she chose to go on Sid Rosenberg's radio show. I don't think that was by mistake. Sid Rosenberg called Mamdani a terrorist, said that Mamdani would, quote, probably cheer if there was another 9/11 attack in New York City. It's a forum that she's picking that I think she knows what sort of signals it sends. So we're seeing a little bit of tension there. It remains to be seen how much that might devolve.
Yeah, a little bit of tension there, but Rebecca, we've seen a lot more tension from some other people who have been Mamdani allies, really coming out criticizing him on this potential property tax proposal, like Queensborough President Donovan Richards. Is Mamdani risking not ruining or alienating some folks, weakening some relationships with this?
I think to Chris's point, it is still fairly early. I think that he still is within a little bit of a grace period, but I definitely think that there is opportunity, the opposite of an opportunity to deteriorate some of these relationships. We're already seeing some of his staunchest allies in the DSA. No one has really formally condemned, none of the leadership, but rank and file, you're starting to hear grumblings about some of his decisions. Donovan Richards, like you said, is being critical of him. And, even someone like the governor, who is not, his biggest fan, but came out to endorse him, has been side by side with him for the childcare announcement and on other shared priorities. She's making it very clear, figure it out. I'm doing what I can, but you can't give me this ultimatum. I'm the governor.
Yeah, we have a long way to go until a budget is finalized. Right now, it's time for a break. I'll have more with these reporters in just 2 minutes. Stay with us.
After 30 years of forecasting for New York, I've learned it takes a dedicated team to cover all the weather our city has to offer. As chief meteorologist at New York One, I'm honored to be able to help New Yorkers plan their day.
Morning, noon, or night, our team is here to bring you accurate forecasts you can count on, from severe weather updates to our weather on the ones. Watch the New York One weather experts with your weather on the ones on your TV and on the go with the Spectrum News app.
I moved from Dallas to Los Angeles all by myself. The order of things I wanted to set up was internet, water, then power. I needed to take a shower, but I really did need the internet for work and to watch my shows. That's kind of a crazy thing to admit in front of a camera. Pretend I didn't say that. I got to Spectrum. I was so relieved that I was getting the best bang for my buck. It was a huge weight taken off of my shoulders.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
My father was a New York City firefighter. My mission, like his, is to serve New Yorkers in a city that doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Being with New York One since the beginning, I'm now honored to join you even earlier each weeknight. Starting at 8 with New York Tonight, we'll explore the latest news developments, followed by New York One at 10 to wrap up your day. So join me each weeknight starting at 8 right here on New York One.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. I'm once again joined by my reporters roundtable, Chris Sommerfeld and Rebecca Lewis. Thank you for staying with us. Rebecca, one item note we did not see in the budget was funding for the Department of Community Safety. This proposal that was really a signature part of Mamdani's campaign. We've now learned he's looking for a deputy mayor that would oversee this department. What have we learned about this deputy mayor? And does it appear the mayor is trying to sidestep the city council in getting this department created?
So we still know very little. In fact, just finding out that he's on the search for a deputy mayor is more news than we've heard basically since he's been elected. I don't know if this is necessarily an indication that he's trying to sidestep the city council. There's still legislation in the council to create this new department. Now, it's possible that the mayor will choose to sidestep if this doesn't get enough support from other members or from the speaker. But it's hard to say right now exactly what he has in mind because we still know so little. And the fact that he's looking for a deputy mayor and that's news is evidence enough of how little we know.
And I think one thing that's come out is that he's trying, while waiting to see what the council is going to do, to get at least some legs under this new agency by potentially issuing an executive order to launch it. Now, that sounds like a very big move, but what that would essentially do is just creating a new office within the mayor's office that would be called something like Office of Community Safety. It would be a placeholder while the council would work to actually establish an agency. So the mayor promised on Tuesday that we would see reflected in his next budget proposal actual funding for this agency. He didn't say how much or for what exactly, but I guess in April we'll see a bigger picture of it.
Does the timing of us learning about this search for a new deputy mayor, does that help perhaps shift some of the focus in the conversation away from his budget and the tax, his requests for different tax hikes?
I think, sure, in a way that there's some news focus on this big shiny object of an agency, but at the same time, that agency is going to require a lot of funding. And where is that funding going to come from at this point? We really don't know because we don't know the answer to the tax question.
Right. Rebecca, the mayor made 6 new appointments to the Rent Guidelines Board this week. Has he essentially locked up a rent freeze?
If that is what his board decides to do, it sounds now like he is open to at least the appearance of independence from the Rent Guidelines Board. Very different from the campaign trail where he has said with his full chest, I will freeze the rent,
right?
Which of course the mayor cannot
do.
But having the majority of the members of the Rent Guideline Board being his appointees, incredible amount of sway if he chooses to step in. But he has stopped short from saying, I will direct my appointees to freeze the rent. But we all know how politics works. There's a good chance that if the mayor wants it, the board will wind up finding in his favor.
And I think, too, it was very notable, his shift in rhetoric there about how he speaks about the board, like to Rebecca's point, during the campaign over and over again, I'm going to only appoint members who are committed to freezing the rent. This week, when I asked City Hall, why isn't he saying that again? The answer was the RGB is an independent body, which is a kind of stunning turnaround, and I think shows that the new mayor is wrestling with this idea that when you're campaigning, you can say certain things. When you're governing, you can't.
Right, and you have to also answer to the people who elected you on those campaign promises. But what would a potential rent freeze, would that be complicated if there is ultimately a property tax hike?
I think that there's a lot of speculation about what exactly would happen there. I think since a lot of the rent-stabilized buildings in the city are in disrepair, if you're freezing the rent and increasing property taxes, you could see how bad that could be for these buildings. A lot of these buildings could end up in financial disrepair and tenants would have to move out. It's so hard to tell at this point which way that's gonna go because the property tax increase seems very unlikely. The freeze seems more likely, but it's hard to know about those two things and how they will impact each other.
Yeah, I know this is a politics show, but I want to talk a little weather. There is snow in the forecast again this weekend. Of course, we don't know what it will ultimately look like, but looking back to the last storm, Rebecca, how would you describe the reaction, the grade that you think New Yorkers gave Mamdani on his response to the last storm? It was sort of his first big test after getting into City Hall. It seemed initially there was some optimism, but maybe some questions came up, in days later. How would you describe his response to the last storm? And then what are you going to be looking critically at if there is some real snow this weekend?
Well, the first storm, I will say, was it was really a doozy. Not just the snow, but also the record low temperatures for a brand new mayor. It's a tough situation all around. I think that he had some missteps. Obviously, there were a fair number of deaths from hypothermia that he has gotten a lot of criticism for. There were people complaining about snow still on the streets weeks after the fact, which, there's only so much that the mayor can do once the snow freezes over in the big piles.
He can't control the temperature.
I think that it just, this time around, it's supposed to be warmer, potentially less snow. I think just as long as he does all the things that he did right in the first storm, I think that he will have a little bit less to worry about, given that we don't also have these sub-zero real feel wind chill temperatures to also deal with. So I think he'll have a little bit of a lighter load this time around.
All right. Well, thank you, Rebecca and Chris, for joining us. And that is going to do it for our roundtable. It's time for a break, and coming up, we'll bring you a snippet of New York One's special Welcome to Queens, Black History in the World's Borough. Errol met up with Queens Congressman Gregory Meeks to talk about Queens' political landscape. Stay with us. We are back in a minute.
We have so many ways to stay connected. A single touch can bring us closer to the families we love, the friends we know, and the city we share. And Spectrum helps us keep connected throughout the day, every day. Including more ways to watch New York One as a Spectrum Internet customer. Watch Spectrum News New York One on the Spectrum News app, available on all your favorite devices.
There's an international travel plan with Spectrum, That was an additional $10 a month, as opposed to paying a ridiculous amount per day for roaming fees. This literally felt like my old phone carrier was reaching their hand into my wallet and just helping themselves to some of my cash. I like having no surprises when it comes to my cell phone bill. And with Spectrum, that's been the case. So it's saved me a ton of money.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Last night, New York One aired Welcome to Queens, Black History in the World's Borough, hosted by Cheryl Wills. From smooth jazz to prominent men and women in politics, the borough has a long list of Black innovators and leaders who've helped shape the city's history. Our Errol Lewis sat down with Queens Congressman Gregory Meeks to talk about the political landscape in the borough. Here's part of their conversation.
Black political power in New York is often thought to be centered in Harlem, where the so-called Gang of Four was a powerful political force who shaped the neighborhood's history for decades and brought us New York's first Black mayor, David Dinkins, and first Black governor, David Patterson. Power later shifted to Brooklyn as the demographics of Upper Manhattan evolved. Many of today's political leaders, including Congressman Hakeem Jeffries and State Attorney General Letitia James, hail from Brooklyn.
I'm Congressman Gregory Meeks from the state of New York.
But Queens has also held its own.
I have 3 daughters and 4 granddaughters.
Wow. For the last 28 years, Congressman Gregory Meeks has represented the Rockaway Peninsula and neighborhoods in southeast Queens, an area shaped by working-class communities and immigrants.
How did you get into public service? You were an activist before you became an official. You were an attorney, you were a prosecutor.
I was raised in East Harlem in public housing. And got to know through my parents and others, individuals like, initially, Adam Clayton Powell as a kid, so I got to see him. But then more directly, as I got into high school, etc., connections with Charlie Rangel, Percy Sutton, David Dinkins, and Basil Patterson.
After Meeks graduated from Howard University School of Law, he moved into his parents' home in Far Rockaway. It was then that he became more active in local politics and joined the Guy R. Brewer United Democratic Club. Meeks originally had no plans to run for office.
The gentleman from New York is recognized for 30 seconds.
Now he's one of the highest-ranking Black leaders in Congress.
I couldn't imagine back then that I would be a member of any political body. I was going to be a good practicing law, maybe doing some election law to help other candidates. It was never my intention to be elected to anything.
In 1984, Meeks was the Queens County Director of the campaign for presidential hopeful Jesse Jackson.
Jesse was that kind of phenomenon that brought a lot of Black politics together and started a lot of the ground roots of movement for me in Far Rockaway, which was my base at the time.
Then in 1992, he saw an opportunity. After redistricting, a new state assembly seat was created, reflecting the growing Black population of Queens.
I had one labor union at the time, DC 37. Jim Butler was the president at that particular time, and he brought all of his troops out.
If there was one to have, that was the one, right?
Yeah. We ended up winning that assembly seat by about 253 votes.
But long before that, it was Guy R. Brewer who laid the groundwork for strong black political representation in Southeast Queens. The assembly member was the first African-American to serve as majority whip from 1969 until his death in 1978. In more recent years, Queens has been home to the first black city council speaker, Adrienne Adams, who's been tapped as Governor Kathy Hochul's running mate and is now part of the first all-female major party gubernatorial ticket in New York State history. And before Meeks took over the seat, the Reverend Floyd Flake represented the Congressional District. He resigned in 1997 to lead the Greater Allen AME Cathedral full-time.
As of October 15th, I am retiring, resigning, leaving the U.S. House of Representatives.
Today is Election Day for the residents of Southeast Queens. Voters there will decide who gets to fill the congressional seat left vacant by Reverend Floyd Flake.
Meeks won the special election with 57.5% of the vote.
I look forward to trying to make a difference in the lives of the people of this great country.
During his time in office, Meeks has served as chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, where he is now the ranking member, and currently heads the Queens County Democratic Party. When Meeks looks back on nearly 3 decades in office, he doesn't point to a single vote or title.
Where are you leaving your mark in this community?
Well, I think in a number of ways. Number one, when you look at the number of people of color and local people that are having jobs or have gotten jobs on Kennedy Airport and the redevelopment of Kennedy Airport, moving in regards to economic opportunities. What I wanted to do is to try to make sure that I included home ownership, to make sure that more folks were able to get homes so that we could close the wealth gap. And then, of course, in general, being the first African-American chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee and looking at all of the different ethnicities that we have in the district, trying to make sure that they're included. So pulling people together and trying to have folks work together and talking together and create that space where we could try to work together and it would not be focused on just an individual, but focused on the collective.
Errol Lewis, inside City Hall.
And you can watch the entire special tomorrow at 2 o'clock and on Sunday at 9 o'clock or on the Spectrum News app. And that's going to do it for tonight's show. But stay tuned for another episode of our weekly national political show, The Big Deal, at 9 o'clock tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Ayana Harry. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time on Inside City Hall.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning.
You're done with the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
You might think Spectrum is just for your home, but Spectrum is seamless connectivity everywhere. It's the network making the other networks sweat. Connectivity from an actual internet company, because internet is what you actually use your phone for. It's way more than 5G. With Spectrum One, it's 5G and fiber-powered internet, seamlessly combined for the fastest wireless speeds. Don't believe us? Ask this guy. He's one of millions who already know. Oh yeah, and this guy too. Turns out people like company. That's why Spectrum is the country's fastest growing mobile provider. Spectrum One. It's only the seamless connection you love at home, everywhere you go. It's only everything.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of going to the theater. Onstage celebrates that excitement every week by taking you behind the scenes with